Welcome to the Linux Saloon, a place to discuss tech, open source, or Linux is always on tap. Each show will have a talk about a Linux project, such as a Linux distribution, desktop environment, or an application. We also chat about news and any variety of topics from the community. Anything that is Linux, tech, and open source related is on the table for discussion. I'm Nate, a Linux, fitness, and vintage tech enthusiast with an almost unhealthy obsession with the OpenSUSE project. And with me today is a fantastic panel of people. I've got the Vashinator, Colin, Penguin Revolution, Sravan, Jinda, Eris, and Eric Adams. Happy 2023. We'll just do this all again right now. So, how is everybody?
Good.
Excellent.
Do we
Good.
swear now or wait? till
Muy
it's
bueno.
Yeah, it's been more than 8 seconds, so you're right to go.
Yeah, we're all good for the swear words. We just got to define what they all are.
Yeah. So because I guess those change over time. Because like words at one time that were inappropriate now that were appropriate now considered inappropriate, and words that I consider inappropriate, which I may sometimes slip up and say, like when I take a hammer and slam my thumb. Those are
You got
swear
Windows?
words. That's definitely a swear word. No, it's not a swear word.
Yeah.
It's just inappropriate.
What's the from A Christmas Story where he goes, "Oh,
fudge.
Oh.
Yeah. Only I didn't say fudge.
Yeah.
So it's good to have everybody here. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna have a chat today about Linux in the new year, and then we'll check out what's on the menu for next week, and we'll do our last call. But first, what have you been doing in Linux or open source or something techie? Sravan, I'm so glad you're here to share some interesting insights about FFmpeg on ARM.
Before that, it's 2023. I want to propose an idea for the Linux Saloon community. We
Sure.
should drop almost. Nate should drop the almost from his introduction. Do you guys agree or not?
Yeah, it's not an
Yeah.
almost unhealthy obsession. I think it's just, but is it really unhealthy? I mean,
Right.
it could be one of the best obsessions you've ever had.
It might be.
So, okay.
I mean,
so we all
it's
agree
not
that we
like
should change
it's not
the-
like I sleep with a plushie or
Earbuds.
anything like that. Or, I don't have like merchandise that I like, cuddle at night or anything. That would be crazy.
Well, after that, I think we should drop the almost.
Yeah.
Definitely.
You can go ahead and submit something in GitHub on that. I will probably not merge that.
Zipper drop almost.
Your website is fine. I'm talking only about Linux Saloon.
Oh, okay. I try not to be too crazy.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So just on like around Christmas time, like I don't use Linux for media consumption at all, but like some of our users do, and one of them had an issue with like using MPV with hardware decoding. As you guys know, ARM devices, most of them use CPU decoding, and they're not powerful, so you can't like you do 180p or even any like 2K or even 4K. You can't do that. You can't watch videos using MPV using on ARM devices that well, like high quality. So, but most of these ARM chips also have a video decoder. I thought it was done using GPU, like NVIDIA does it, but apparently, so video decode on ARM is done by a separate unit on the SoC called a VPU or whatever. It's a separate chip. It's not the GPU. So before I was like trying to mess with like Mesa and other stuff, but that's all GPU. That's just graphics. It has no role to play for hardware decoding. So apparently for MPV, it uses FFmpeg as a backend for a video decoding. If you don't specify a hardware decoder, it will just use a CPU. If you specify a hardware decoder, for many ARM devices, it's called video for Linux to memory or V4L to M2M. That's the hardware decoder. but apparently, like it's a kernel module, so it's part of the kernel, and FFmpeg uses that. But the bad thing is that earlier 4 point something versions of FFmpeg have had good support with those kernel versions, like whenever that was, like a year, 2 years ago, or 3 years ago. So older FFmpeg on like Debian, Armbian, like all those older distros, like which have like older packages, for those kernel versions and FFmpeg versions, they work. But like I think around 5.3 or 5.4, it stopped working on ARM. And it's like I tried, like I was working with another distro, Arch ARM-based distro called Kupfer. Its developer was trying to set up a Odroid N2 plus TV box for their parents, and it was like they were trying out Endeavor's ARM to use that and like try MPV or Kodi, but hardware decoding was not working. So even though the chip is powerful, it was capable of doing like 2K video decoding. It didn't work because FFmpeg itself was broken. So we were lucky to find a project. I think I put all the links in the show documents. We can probably show. So it's called RPi FFmpeg project. It's on GitHub. So we were so it's an somewhat active project. So we took that and we packaged it for like the latest kernel. We sort of got it working, but the issue is like if you seek or you fast forward, it's like crashing. So it's an issue of both the kernel and the development of FFmpeg, like not probably being in sync or other issues. We don't know how to solve it, but we have a package with, if you don't stop the audio, at least you get hardware decoding on ARM. So we tried it on Raspberry Pi and Odroid. It's working on both, but it needs more work. Currently it's working, but it's not perfect.
So yeah, I've tried hardware encoding, like using in Kdenlive when like doing the rendering the Linux Saloon or other things, other video projects, and I haven't noticed it any faster than like some of the like I've timed it, like doing both the hardware encoding versus the CPU encoding, and it's pretty much on par 1-to-1, at least on my Intel with the integrated graphics.
Yeah,
I don't know if
that's the Intel, right?
Yeah.
So Intel actually that has good hardware. So if I use Intel laptops for a long while, you don't need to use. I have a dual like GPU, like Intel plus NVIDIA, but I almost never use NVIDIA because for most common, like most of us watch videos on browsers. So for that, like CPU is enough for H.264, H.265, all those things. Intel has good chips in the CPU itself, like separate sections for audio encoding, video encoding and decoding. So for most common stuff, you don't need to do that. If you want 4K and you're watching some video on MPV, then you need NVIDIA. Otherwise, I never use NVIDIA. Only if I'm watching like high quality stuff, you need like not on browser but elsewhere. Otherwise, you almost never need NVIDIA. But that's how I thought on ARM. Like apparently GPUs don't have any hardware. Like they don't do that much. So all the Mesa stuff, they don't help at all. So we somehow like narrowed it down to FFmpeg. we managed to narrow down the issue. We started with MPV and like started like isolating issues. I built Mesa, I built other Panfrost drivers, like all the video drivers. Nothing helped. And then searching online the issues. I think I put some links also in the show notes. So searching on like different like Manjaro forums, Armbian forums, Odroid forums, like we were able to isolate the issue to like that V4 L to M2M hardware decoder, and then we were able to find like these alternative projects which are enabling FFmpeg support, like hardware encoding, decoding on ARM. And it's a huge difference, like CPU versus this way. Let's call it VPU. It's
Okay.
like huge. Like it's not even close.
So Nate,
Yes.
when you were talking about Caden Live and hardware encoding, right? Right?
Yeah.
Like hardware encoding. Now, do you have a dedicated GPU or an integrated GPU
So
on that computer?
the computer I was using, I was testing to see if the integrated GPU, how it would perform versus the CPU. It was better. It was a little bit faster, but it was very marginal. It was like we're talking seconds, which could have been it was statistically insignificant. And then
Well,
I did notice
is
with the
it
APU
Intel
on the yes, and then
yeah,
on the
okay.
on the AMD using the APU on because an APU for this machine here, that actually seems to be a slight like just barely a statistical improvement over it, but it's not. Whether I did that one or the other didn't seem that significant to me, which is why I was curious about the hardware
So this
encoding.
is VA API hardware
For I don't
for your
remember.
encoding, VA API.
Yeah.
Are you
Okay,
doing H264 or H265?
Well, with VA API, it's 264.
264, okay.
But yeah, I would say on Intel, I'd say it's neck and neck. But with the AMD APUs, I always notice a little bit of a difference. And so yeah, the thing is, if you have that dedicated graphics code, it works a lot faster.
So Sravan, is there like with this project then? So it's a work in progress, obviously right now, right?
Yeah, it's a work in progress. I put the link to the GitHub for both the source project, which is art by FFmpeg, and also we call it FFmpeg M2M. Like we just created a package. Anyone who wants a packageable is there. So if anyone else wants to look at it, wants to contribute, you can. So it'll work on any Arch-based system. And if you want to test it, obviously you want to test an ARM system because this is patch for that. It's
Gotcha.
a patch version of FFmpeg.
So
But
the question I have is what is like the outstanding issues, like without me going through there, like in the top of your mind, like what would you say is like a top outstanding issue, and what's the hang up in solving that?
So the issue is like FFmpeg. I told you FFmpeg used to work on ARM, like this V412 to M like protocol used to work, but it's not anymore. And I'm not an expert to know why.
Okay.
Hopefully, I think that's the thing in like Linux development is like kernel does a whole lot of things and it's moving, and sometimes packages and development of other stuff like doesn't move as fast.
Okay.
Or it moves in a different direction, breaking stuff which are not meant, which no one thinks is breaking. I think I'm not sure, and like this issue has been submitted to FFmpeg, but there's no activity there. A patch might be coming. That's why, probably because there's no activity, there's a separate project by someone else.
With so much focus on ARM right now, I mean, I think that's the kind of feedback that stands a good chance of getting picked up and looked at. It just seems like in the last, 12, 18 months, ARM, maybe even longer, but it seems particularly around there, that there's just been more and more interest in ARM as a less as a sort of low power niche device and more as a sort of everyday usable processor. So hopefully that's the type of thing that you report it, others run into it and report it, and just in general that a better experience for hardware accelerated video, that they support that.
Like I agree with you, Eric. Like I've been working on Endeavor's ARM since last April, so in the past like 7-8 months. Like the goal for us is like we think like ARM SoCs are right now capable of functioning as a everyday low power computing for most of a desktop computer. I'm not talking about like many people here are like Linux engineers. Most of you guys are Raspberry Pis, use it for Pi-hole, whatnot, like a lot of containers. But what we believe is like, I think I've shown you guys this huge powerful device earlier too.
Is that the Odroid?
Yeah, this is the Rock 5B.
Oh, okay.
It's capable of 8K video encoding, decoding, and other whole bunch of other stuff. It's like
Wow.
ARM processor.
Is that
So
the
I showed you, right?
the Pico
RK358.
8?
No, RK358, Rock chip.
Yeah, no. Is it the form factor though? Is that the is that
It's
the
bigger,
new
yeah.
the Pico ISA standard, something like that?
Mhm.
Okay.
Like this thing is like really powerful, but again, the main issue is holding this back is that kernel patches are not mainline. U-boot is not mainline. Like some of this U-boot, building U-boot for this requires Python 2. I don't get it. It's like I can't even build it on Arch-ARM. Some people have. So it's like there are a lot of issues because again, this is active development, the platform of RK3588. But once kernel supports get main, everything gets like Raspberry Pi. This is like going to be really, really powerful. But like these sort of things is like you just get a box for this. You can use it in a normal computer.
Yeah.
Like
I think of
literally.
myself, I could probably 95% of the time, as long as there would be good support for rendering websites and stuff. I do most of my stuff in Firefox. As long as Firefox ran well on it, I could run watch some videos, stuff like that. Most of the video I watch is in a browser, but if it, video editing and stuff like that, yeah, I mean, most of the stuff I do, I could do on a low power device. I think, as support gets better, and also just availability of different styles of devices, like you said, you can put that in a box and use that. I think, maybe in a laptop form is probably a better for me. And I know there are some ARM laptops and things, but yeah, exactly. So anyway, yeah, I think the idea of low power computing makes a lot of sense for a lot of people. Yeah.
But you don't need that much power, like unless you're like dedicated, like.
So the thing that about like Raspberry Pis, and maybe it's different with like Odroid or whatever this, I already forgot what it was, machine is that you held up. But one of the irritations that I have with like Raspberry Pi for general purpose computing is that a lot of the ATX, since like the ATX platform has been a thing, things like suspending power states, the soft power off, soft power on, that doesn't exist in ARM. So
Sleep doesn't work in ARM.
yeah, so it's kind of like going back and like going ARM is kind of like going back in time about 30 years at PC technology, but lower power.
So that's the reason why I don't use my Pinebook that often. It's like I configure it to use only shallow sleep called S2 idle. Deep sleep doesn't work. If I do a deep sleep, it doesn't wake up. It's like everything is gone. And shallow sleep is like 5% battery per hour. So if you leave your computer at 40% and sleep for like 6, 7 hours or 8 hours, your computer is dead by the time you wake up. So you can't use it as a laptop.
Right.
Or you have to leave it continuously powered on. Yeah. But when it works, it's like I said, 5% battery per hour, right? So let's say you're using for normal stuff. This should last 10 hours, and this is like $200 laptop.
Yeah.
It can do most of the stuff you want. It's a 6-core processor. It's slightly more powerful than Raspberry Pi. It's not as powerful as Odroid. It's obviously not as powerful as my Rock 5. But you can do a lot of things. And Firefox works well. Chromium works well. There's no Chrome for ARM, unfortunately. But it's like if you have most popular open source applications work.
Well, very cool. So I guess it'd be interesting to see how this unfolds over time. So make sure you keep us surprised if if you're still working on it, like next week or the week after or whatever, or just a periodic check-in on that. I think would be interesting because I think ARM is great for like appliances and doing lots of appliance type activities, and I think watching videos is one of those appliances. I used a Raspberry Pi for a long time as a media home theater PC, and it works great. So good to have more of this work being done. All right, Eric, You have been dipping into the excitement that is shoving things in your ear. So what are these things you're shoving in your ear?
I do. Let's see. I have eye drops. I have a lip balm. No, I have.
You put those things in your ear?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
Oh, fantastic.
I've been watching and trying Bluetooth earbuds
Okay.
for quite a while now, and it's sort of a generational thing. And at first, they, unless you were buying the top ends, and I'm also very cheap, and I also recognize the fact that I'm likely going to like lose. They're so tiny.
Right.
There's a good chance that I would lose this. And so the idea of like buying ones that are a couple $100 just isn't going to work for me. So I've tried them basically every year for the last few years, 3 years or so. I've gotten a pair on the lower end, $50 and below, and just tried to live with them and see how they worked. And up until this year, they've all been pretty lackluster. The battery life was pretty terrible. The sound quality was pretty awful. The microphones in them were pretty bad. So just all around, very, very underwhelming. And while the convenience factor is there, so for me, the reason that I actually am mostly interested in wireless is just because I'm sick of having wires, hanging off of me. I've already got the airline and the, glasses and the rest of it. So it's just headphones with wires is just another thing that's really annoying. I like to listen to podcasts and music and videos and other things throughout the day, and I don't necessarily always sit in one place to do it. So a lot of times I'll have my phone in my pocket and my headphones like either shoved up through my shirt or and try to do anything I can to keep it from catching on stuff.
Right.
And inevitably it does, and then it yanks out of my ear, and I've actually actually pulled the speaker off, the earbud off.
Yep.
Anyway, so that's really like what's interesting to me. It's about them is that freedom of not needing that. So unfortunately, finally this year, it seems like they've matured enough that the battery life is exceptional, in my opinion. This tiny little thing has 4, 5, 6, 8 hours in some cases of battery life. The sound quality is very good, and the microphones are good. I could make a phone call and actually even use it as a microphone to record something. So I mean, I think a lot of people have seen, like, people on television, reporters and things like that. Field reporters will wear AirPods, and that's what they're using not only to hear but to speak as well. They're not holding a microphone anymore. They're actually using AirPods to capture the audio, and that's kind of impressive to me that they've been able to, Apple's been able to pull that off. But of course, those are also a couple $100, and this pair is very much like an AirPod in terms of the way it fits in your ear, and it's $40. And then I have this pair, which is more like a noise cancellation sort of, in your ear, where it actually covers, fits into your ear and like blocks all the sound. I don't like wearing those all day. I prefer the semi-open, so that I can hear around me. I don't like to be blocked off completely. And these are exceptionally good, and they're $23. Like, they last for a solid 7 hours. They charge 4 times in this. This is actually how they charge, and it's got a USB-C plug on the bottom. So yeah, I mean, I guess what I'm saying is that we've finally gotten to the point where enough has happened, generations over generations successively, that even the inexpensive ones now are pretty good. And I've been enjoying, since early December now, not having wires around me. And it's definitely the type of thing where I can't go back now. So
yeah, I get it. I got some earbuds, they were like $70, and I splurged, which is very rare for me to splurge. I think I did 3 times last year. I splurged, maybe 4. But they they have the microphone in them also. They're the Raycon Everyday Earbuds, and they're
Mm-hmm.
actually quite good. They last probably about 4 to 6 hours of continual listening. Like I was outside today hacking away at some of the brush. I'm still working on a fence that I haven't finished yet because of either weather or laziness. But I was cutting on branches and whatnot, and I only had them fall out of my head once. But I was wearing a stocking cap to kind of hold them in. But I find that if I'm opening, like I can't eat and wear them because they'll fall out of my head if I eat. If I'm not eating, if I'm running, I can wear them. But if I can't move my jaw, that somehow kind of messes with them. What brand are those? You said it, but I didn't.
So what I
register.
like about these, and what I've tried ones that are like the Raycons. This is give me 1 second. Soundcore. It's an Anchor company.
Okay.
ANKER. They sell a lot of like peripheral stuff, and I've bought a lot of their USBs, power cords. Like they do all sorts of stuff like that. And so now they're doing headphones. The thing that's really nice about these is they're much smaller than an AirPod. I mean, this part is a little bit larger, but it's because it has a bigger driver in it. And this part is not as, so the Raycon ones and ones that are like that they're out further from your head, and they want to fall
Mhm.
a little more easily. These, honestly, I think I would have to, I don't know, like run into something and hit and come to a quick dead stop. You know what I mean? Like a really strong jolt for them to come out of my ear. Especially because they seat themselves pretty well. They sound great. They've got a little tactile button on them,
Mhm.
which makes it very easy to pause, to turn your volume up and down. I'm actually wearing one. I have been this whole time.
Oh, cool.
And this is the one that's more like an AirPod where it doesn't fit tightly, but even it still sits in my ear canal in a way that it won't fall out very easily. So anyway, yeah, I thought I would bring up it's a little tech thing, but it's one of those things that now that I have been using them, I don't ever think I can go back to using wired headphones just from the convenience factor. And because they're inexpensive enough, I'm not afraid to take them with me and use them. And if I happen to lose them, which I don't think I will, because I'm in the habit of just putting it back in the case when I'm done.
Mhm.
But if I were to lose it, like, okay, if I'm out of $20 or $30, like, I probably wouldn't be happy about it, but I'm not going to be as upset as I would if I lost a $200 pair,
Right.
So
The EarPod thing, I agree. And I don't know how anyone here uses wireless stuff. Like these are wireless Bluetooth headphones. I've been using them since we started DL and Extend. I've been using these actually since back in the very early days of Biddle. For me,
Mhm.
and I've been pretty happy with Bluetooth. Like Bluetooth performance in Linux has been fantastic for probably about 6-7 years.
The other
Oh,
thing I
sorry.
forgot to mention was the range. So the old ones would have like a 12 to 15-foot range in line of sight only. Like if you got around a corner, forget it.
Right.
And these, I've literally walked like halfway through the house, through walls and things, and I don't know how, but they still seem to do just fine. So
Yeah, that's pretty great.
yeah, there's no downside yet that I've found.
Yeah, it's just interesting, the technology and the battery technology, the efficiency of these components, and I agree. Like a wire is not enjoyable. However, I will say the one thing is like when I do like the lighting sequences for like my house to make sure it's timed right, I can't use Bluetooth because there's just a little bit of a latency, and so I have to have wired. Otherwise, I can't time things correctly. So
Yeah.
that is not a feature that's unique to Linux either. That is a feature that's unique to Bluetooth. So Bluetooth, there's a bit of a delay, and yes, it is
Yes.
what it is. First world problems.
Yeah. These have a gaming mode, which was
Okay.
supposed to, make the latency. But even then, I think there's still probably just enough that I agree with you. If you were doing something, it's not going to be a catch-all, but yeah, it is nice, like you said, to be outside doing things in the lawn and just not have to worry about stuff, hanging off you.
Right.
So
And when you're dealing with power tools, things that cut and spin, it's not a good idea to have any wires hanging off you. Just or even like any kind of like a hoodie with those
yeah,
cords and everything else. So it's a good idea to have everything nicely buttoned up. And so for me, I don't like headphones for safety perspective, like that are wired. I mean, it's probably not going to choke me out, but it's not going to be a fun time if it goes spinning around,
yeah, yeah.
Here you
Yep.
are talking about Bluetooth, and I'm sitting here with my wired USB headphones.
And if I was just sitting here at my computer, I really don't have a problem with wired headphones. They don't bother me. When I'm stationary and right here, it's much more about if I'm moving around, and that's how I am a lot of the time. And so yeah. The other thing is I usually only wear one at a time. I don't like to have both in. And so with wired, that means I'm tucking the other wire into my shirt, and then it gets caught. It's always a pain in the butt. And like, with headphones, somehow they magically tie themselves into knots like all the time. Like you can wrap them up very nicely and set them down and come back to, pull them apart, and magically they're all in 5 different knots. So that's just me,
anything with a
maybe.
wire. Anything with a
Yeah.
wire.
Yep.
The thing is, with this one, it magically ties itself in knots. It's just one wire that comes into it. So I mean, everything with wires end up magically tying up.
Yeah, it looks like I'm not alone
Yeah.
in the way I look at it too. So Leo, he says he uses both types, wired for recording and editing, wireless for fun like music. Says my ATH M50Xs serve both purposes. So it must be like wired and wireless, something like that. That's cool.
There's some where you can
Yep.
plug them in and it'll be like just a solid wire.
Yeah.
And then you can unplug it and have Bluetooth. Yeah.
Yeah, I've had to do.
And there's also
I've had to do that before
Sorry.
with these. These have that this Blue Dio, what I think it's called.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
these ones I've got here are Sony. They cost me like $15-20. I think I was at the shop with the missus in Aldi, selling them pretty cheap. And I've got a Toshiba laptop here.
Mhm.
I've had it for about 10 years or something, but I've always used it with wired connection. So when I messed my computer up the other week, I was using that. And the Bluetooth, when I connected, because I think the Wi-Fi and the Bluetooth are connected the same. So when you turn the Bluetooth on, it it slows down your download.
Oh wow,
Yeah.
that's.
I was trying to figure out. It was, yeah. Every time I went on YouTube, it just kept buffering all the time, and I was trying to figure out what was going on because I installed Linux Mint quickly on there just to try it out, and I thought it was Linux Mint, and then I was trying other things, and then it seemed to be consistent. I looked it up. Yeah, it interferes with the Wi-Fi. It's strange.
Yeah, it's interesting. I do notice that sometimes, like when I walk away from my laptop and I have those earbuds in, and then when I come back, the mouse, because it's also Bluetooth, so both things are on Bluetooth. The mouse will sometimes like shudder a little bit before it continues. It's like there's a little bit of lag going on because of all the communication and whatnot. So apparently Bluetooth.
You mentioned Bluetooth. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to jump in on you.
No, it's fine. It's Bluetooth mouse, Bluetooth headphones. They kind of have a little bit of a fight, I guess.
But I'm even doing multiple Bluetooth devices now on Linux, which is pretty impressive. I use this my trackball. I can use it with the little dongle, but it's yet another USB thing I have to plug in. So I just choose to do Bluetooth. And on Manjaro GNOME, at least I can, as soon as I bring the computer up from sleep, within a couple seconds it's connected and I can use it right away. So it's not like sit and wait for Bluetooth to connect. And then I'm using Bluetooth, earbuds, and so Bluetooth on Linux is pretty decent, pretty solid.
Yeah, for sure. Well, very cool. Well, if you have any issues with those earbuds in the future or whatever, or if they continue to be awesome, please do share again. I like an update because you hear about something once and you never hear about it again. But I always like the follow up, like, a year from now, or 6 months from now,
Yeah.
how is that thing still? Are you still using that thing? There are many things I stop using after a little while, and so sometimes it's nice to hear, a repeat on that. So I'll make sure to put a reminder in my calendar or something to ask you again about that.
Okay.
All right, well, very cool. Colin, in the last 3 weeks, sometime you've been playing with Vanilla OS. And
Yes, I found myself
what is Vanilla OS?
It's meant to be an immutable system based on Ubuntu.
Okay.
And you can install things through the terminal from the AUR and also from DNF. I've only tried AUR so far, but it's quite cool. I've been doing some interesting things. So it's gotten you got to use APX command, which is APX will pick up the default base system, which is based on Ubuntu. That will install things from the Ubuntu repos, I think. Then you can use the other commands using the AUR switch or the DNF switch. So it's quite interesting. You can have an Ubuntu base and install things from the Fedora repos, I think, and the Arch AUR. So that's quite interesting.
So you got a question from the chat, Leo, which I think I've clicked on him too many times already this show. It says, Vanilla, Colin, how did APX work for you? I don't know what that means.
Yeah, go on, Penguin. You've got something to say.
Yeah, I'll answer that question too. But APX is the package manager for Vanilla OS. It doesn't use apt at all. It's not even installed on the system. And the way that APX works is it sandboxes it into your particular user account. That's how you're able to install things from the AUR or from Fedora or from OpenSUSE, because it sandboxes it by itself without influencing the system. So that's how you can do that without breaking the system. But APX is an amazing system. But now, how did it work for you, Colin?
So far, so good. I tried some very complicated things. I installed SSB through the AUR, and I tried to run a web app with IceSSB, but didn't work to start with. But I had to. It creates .desktop files. That's what it does, and then you run it. But some things just don't seem to come up in the menu. So it did pop up with the command that it had. So I made an alias for that command, and then all I did was just run whatever I did in the ICE program, because I've got to run APX --AUR run ICE. That runs that program. Then you can install your web apps, but then you've got to make an alias for those to work, which was quite interesting. I was just sort of down this rabbit hole a little bit with that, but it is interesting that you can run things from other repositories.
Yeah.
And yeah, you're right. It sandboxes everything, like you say. So everything's meant to be sandboxed. And I think it's got Flatpaks, I think, as well.
Yeah.
Has Flatpaks in the software store. So that's all Flatpak. So that way everything is sandboxed. So the system will update itself. I think I've installed some things, going back to Leo's question. I'm pretty sure I installed something through APX. I cannot remember what it was, though. I was doing so much.
Something fun.
Well, Colin, you make a really good point with APX is with this, when you install like let's just say you install HTOP through APX, it's going to sandbox that into your account, and you have to remember to type in APX run HTOP. However, I think, and I've suggested this to the developers, they should make APX make those aliases for you, so that you don't have to type in such a long command to run your basic applications with a terminal. And but yeah, that's kind of annoying.
That just depends, because I think a couple of them did show up in the menu, I'm pretty sure.
Oh yeah, they show up in the menu, but I'm talking about from the terminal.
Oh, from the terminal. Oh, okay,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and that's kind
right.
of annoying to
Oh,
type
okay.
in that long command when you're used to just typing in htop into that. And that's the
True.
thing that I found annoying. And I'm just like, perhaps maybe they could adjust APX to make those aliases for you, so you can just type htop into it without having to go and make those aliases yourself.
True.
And I've suggested that, and they've said that is possible, and it's probably in the plans. But
Okay.
but right now it's kind of wonky the way that APX works.
It's so far it's still running. I haven't really played with it. I haven't had a chance. Just any time that I get, I try to do some things on here. But so far so good. It did install NVIDIA, and this NVIDIA is it's an Optimus, and it does say it's installed. I can't work out whether it's using it or not because it's an immutable system. I can't do the normal commands to check from the system if NVIDIA is actually being used. But it does say that it's in it. It does say in the under the because they've got a control thing. They've got Vanilla OS Control Center, and it's got the drivers under there, and it says it's got a tick next to the NVIDIA driver. So I'm assuming it's using that, but I don't know.
Yeah,
we can count
I've
it.
noticed that. I noticed that on this laptop. I noticed that, and that's something that we probably should file a bug report on.
And if you don't know the actual commands in APX and doing AUR or anything, in the control, the Vanilla Control Center, they've got a subsystem. So you can actually click on Arch Linux subsystem and it'll open up a terminal just purely for Arch. I think that's how it works. Oh, they've got Alpine in there as well, I forgot to say. They've also got Alpine. So they've got Fedora, Arch, and Alpine. Yeah. And anything you install under APX, actually, it shows under here as well. So Cherry Tree and KeyPass XC are showing up as installed applications, I think, under APX.
So
it seems to be working fine.
So see, it's an immutable operating system, immutable root file system. Is that what it is? So like Micro OS or Silverblue or SteamOS.
Similar
right?
to that, I believe so. Yeah.
More like Nix.
Yeah, it's a bit like Nix, but they've got a little bit more. I find, as opposed to Nix, I find installing things a bit better. It's not as complex. The commands are quite easy.
Yeah, there's I found Nix to be a little bit more complex than vanilla.
Yeah, because there's no procedural language in vanilla. Like Nix is all about the procedural language setup, and vanilla just doesn't have that. So it just depends on what you're looking for.
Well, very cool, Colin. So do you think you're going to continue to use vanilla OS, or is this something that you're just kind of playing with for now?
I'm just playing with it for now. I don't. If I was ever to use it as a full-time thing on my main system, I like to use something for quite a long period of time, at least 2-3 months or something, to see whether it's actually worthwhile. There's little things like now I'd like to get an opinion from other people. I use KeyPass XC, but I actually saved the file under system files to make it more secure. But in this case, it would have to be under a user file. But I don't think it matters because you can put long, complex passwords in it. But yeah, I don't know how other people save their KeyPass XC if anyone uses it. But
it shouldn't matter as long as you've got a secure system. It should not matter.
Secure.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, as long as you're maintaining the secure system, like updates and stuff, it should be fine.
Sure.
Yeah.
But now as far as vanilla, when I was playing with it, I don't think it's ready to be a daily driver. I think that they need to do a little bit more work on it because I had some stability issues with it when I was trying it out. But but honestly, I think that I think that the development is going to get there. It's just a relatively new project.
Yeah, it is. Seems to be working okay. I don't think I've done an update yet, so I can't remember whether I did an update or anything. But it says it's up to date, so that's from their control center says up to date. So it's an interesting concept. I like the idea because you can get continued updates. I think because it runs on the point releases. I think for Ubuntu.
It runs on LTS.
Is it? I thought it was point
Yep,
releases.
it runs on LTS. It's 18. It's
Oh.
it's based on 22.04.
What do you,
I thought
Swift?
no, not the one that I downloaded. It was 2310, I think. The one I downloaded was 2310.
Yeah, the one I
because
have
I think
is based off of 22.04.
Oh, okay. There must be different ones then. I don't know.
I didn't know if they had the point releases, but I always managed to download the LTS versions these days.
Okay.
Well, I thought that was the whole idea of it. So it just kept, because it's immutable, you don't have to keep installing, and it keeps rolling with the point releases of Ubuntu. That's what I thought it was doing. Maybe I'm wrong. I may have to look into that. So I don't want to lead anyone astray here.
That's all right. I wasn't planning on using it anyway. So Swift, what were you going to say?
Yeah, I came across Vanilla OS a little while ago, and I was curious about it, but I didn't download it. I kind of waited and listened for others to put their comments about it. You know, I'm kind of glad I didn't, because it doesn't seem like it's ready for prime time just yet. I'm pretty much going to just keep my eye on it. And if I hear that it's worthwhile, then I guess I'll check it out in the future. I mean, right now it's just not, I'm not hearing anything that's kind of like jumping out at me in particular. So it's just interesting to hear about it.
Yeah.
I'm always open to hear from it. Mhm.
Immutable OSs have always seemed to be something like you have to have a specific use case for it. Like, how afraid of breaking your computer are you that you would need to do that?
Well,
to me,
it's
Okay.
Yeah.
It seems to be becoming very popular now. There's quite a few coming out now. So I don't know whether this is the future of Linux, immutable
God, I hope
systems.
not.
Well,
I don't like it. I really don't.
So what
Well,
does that
Eric,
term immutable mean?
It's okay. So basically, all of the system itself, so anything outside of basically your home directory is sort of locked in a read-only state.
Oh,
Yeah.
It's a snapshot, so the file, the root itself is basically just a released snapshot, and then the customization you do and the applications you install, all that sort of stuff, it lives outside of that core, that root snapshot. And basically what it means is it's almost impossible for you to destroy it. Like, no matter what you do, unless you can do overrides. I mean, your root is root, right? I mean, you can still delete directories and stuff like that. But that to me, again, going back to what I was saying about if a specialized system, let's say you're running a library and you want to make sure that nobody can accidentally destroy the OS, or you're, in a public setting like that, or with a child maybe, or I don't know, that type of setting. And I understand that they're popular, but I just don't see why I would ever need or want to run a system like that.
Okay.
Personally.
Eric, well, the thing is, Vanilla OS makes themselves immutable for a purpose, so that you can install stuff from the AUR and stuff without breaking your system. It's not necessarily being scared to break your system.
But it's my system to break.
Install all that stuff. What?
It's my system to break.
Yeah, I mean, that's
really?
I mean,
yeah.
Tell him, Eric. You tell him.
I feel the same way as Eric. I'm more one that if something's gonna break, I'm gonna break it. Though personally, I will say that as far as the AUR, I have not really had anything break my system from the AUR.
That's good to know.
Okay.
So
well-
the other thing is, I believe if the update goes south and something goes wrong, you also got, you can roll back to previous, I believe, on startup. I don't know if I've seen that.
It
So I don't
uses
think
an
I've done an
AB.
update.
I'm
Yeah.
going through the FAQ right now. It uses an A/B update,
Yeah.
so you update A or B back and forth, similar to how Android does it, same as how SteamOS does it as well. So it's an interesting way of doing that.
What's the advantage of using that over ButterFS snapshots with Grub ButterFS? So you
I
can
think-
just roll back and restore.
You're not
exactly.
It's just another method.
Well,
of
there's
doing
no-
it. So you're not going to. I would prefer the ButterFS way of doing it, because I have done
Yeah.
changes, and I actually had to roll back several changes back more than once because of silliness that I did. So you don't have that with the AB, but at the same time, because it's immutable, you're not tweaking and messing with certain bits of the software, you're adding chunks onto it that are removable. Usually, like adding Flatpak. So Eric, to your
I'm
point,
just asking, like, what's the advantage? Because, like,
Uh,
again, I use Btrfs on my Raspberry Pi,
Mhm.
both for home and root.
Yep.
For home, I don't roll back. The good thing about Btrfs snapshots is that you can browse them. So for home, if I delete any file by mistake, I go back to 1 hour back snapshot. I can literally copy paste the file. It's not even restoring. It's like I open the snapshot, I browse it, I copy paste.
I think maybe where immutable comes in, and Nate, you gave a good example on a cell phone or something that is like an appliance. Right. You expect that it's very difficult to break it from a software standpoint because the core itself is so rigidly controlled. You can have whatever apps you want, you can customize the look and feel, the files that are on the system, all of that, but that core underlying system is what it is. And so from that perspective, yeah, I get it. Again, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it. I'm just saying that from my perspective, like, I kind of want and need to be able to control my computer in a way that my use case is different from what I could envision using this for. And there are lots of use cases for that just don't apply to me. So as a home user, I guess I understand when people are like, oh my goodness, Vanilla OS or Silverblue or any of the other ones that are out there that do this, like, what benefit do you see from using that over a traditional system?
I think if
So
you're running
you've
a corporate structure, you'd rather have immutable for all your corporate machines. Like, so if you're giving, if you have, I'm just thinking, like, if a corporation were to set up machines for people to use, to do their work, I would prefer they have an immutable desktop environment because then you can control it. But for a personal user, I don't know what the benefit is. There's probably some conveniences as far as having everything containerized. There's probably some security benefits in there.
You got no dependency issues in this situation. So you've removed dependency problems completely. I mean, when you update Arch, there could be issues that you've got to make sure that are not pending when you update, because there could be a problem, right? Because you've got all these different versions of dependencies that create absolute nightmares in some instances. Doesn't happen often, but it can happen. In this case, I don't think it happens because everything's containerized, right? Whether the containerized applications work well with each other, under normal circumstances and doesn't cause a problem where you want to grab a file and all that sort of thing, that could be an issue in itself. I don't know.
Yeah, well, yeah, but the thing is, with other containerized packages such as snaps and Flatpaks, more Flatpaks in this case, you'll have some of those issues as well. Sravan got his hand up.
We got Sravan.
So first, I'll go to positives about immutable file systems. Again, I haven't used them at all, but I've used them. Like, let's say our phones are immutable. So if you have a Linux distro, which is easy to install, easy to maintain, and it's for normal users, not power users, normal users, but everything should be easy, I see a use case. But currently, if you're talking about containers, most advanced users don't even bother about containers. Containers it's like hardcore computer users. Like, containers are becoming more popular, more and more people are trying them, but I had to put a lot of thought into it, like, before actually trying Docker, then getting it to work, like using containers. And whenever we talk about containers, all of them have overhead. So you have performance loss. If you're not doing anything bare metal, every time you do anything, you'll have issues running them. You'll have performance issues, both like actual, like, let's say efficiency. Like, if you're running something bare metal versus you're running a container, each container has its own overhead. And sometimes container might fail, the app in the container might fail. It's like a lot of things which need to go right. And like all these like APX, like, it's not meant, I don't think it's meant for like beginner users, but if there is something meant for them, I see a use case. Yeah.
All right. Well, let's have a look at Linux Mint. They got Flatpak out of the box in their software store, right? So people are using Flatpaks that don't even know it, or they're clicking on the Flatpak category and installing Flatpaks, whether they understand it or not. They're using containerized applications. Same with Ubuntu, isn't it? Snaps are containerized, aren't they?
Yeah,
And they're
but
using.
but I think in the Ubuntu software store now, it will tell you if you're installing a snap. So, but yeah, with Linux Mint, it's very easy to install a Flatpak without knowing it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
Linux Mint also blocks snaps, but that's a totally different argument there. But
Is it a bad thing that it? I mean, if I as a user search for something and that comes up and I get the Flatpak, I mean, I'm not sure I understand
okay,
why that's a bad thing.
there are a couple of problems I can see with that. Is number one is Flatpaks with their container, the way they're containerized, sometimes interact a little bit different with the file system, and you might not understand why it's doing a certain thing or why it's not like conforming to your system theme or something like that. That's stuff like that. And also, you run into the same problem that that a lot of people complained about with Ubuntu and Chromium and Ubuntu and Firefox, where you try to install Firefox or Chromium as a apt deb package, and it goes around and installs the snap. So I mean, so you have that complaint as well, but people tend to complain about Ubuntu about that, but they won't complain about Linux Mint not telling you it's a Flatpak, which I think is kind of a double standard there.
Right. That's a fair
And-
point.
Well, Linux Mint has the category says Flatpak. So if you click on it, you know you're within Flatpaks. Whether people understand it or not, it still says Flatpak, right? So if you click on it, anything within that category is going to be a Flatpak. So it is there. But the thing that I see that's happening in Linux at the moment, I think we're going in a direction of using containerized applications, which is making it a heck of a lot easier for developers to develop an application without worrying about all these different dependencies under different under different repositories and stuff for different bases. And I think I can see that's where we're heading, because it's a lot easier for developers. I'd have to think, I'm not a developer, but I'd have to think it's easier to develop a containerized application and get all those dependencies within that one container without worrying about your application being messed up by another dependency in a system.
Yeah.
Regardless of base.
Yeah, and Distro2, Derek over there, actually addressed that concern with Arch when he found out that when he updated Arch, it was like breaking things like Kden Live and his Office suite. And then he started installing them as snaps, and that solves that problem, because Arch updates some dependencies in the background that might break applications. And that's one of the reasons why I don't like Arch. But again, that's off the beaten path.
John Gould said, containers, Docker and the like, have been popular in the development community for a long time, so perhaps containerized OS would be a better value proposition on that front as well. So I don't want to belabor this too long, because we're like over halfway done with this thing, and we haven't gotten to like the Act 2 yet. So very cool. I guess, Colin, let's circle back to your vanilla OS experience, in a couple weeks, and see how that is working out for you. Yeah.
If I get time.
I did a poll. I should have done a straw poll. I didn't. I just kind of did it at a whim. Eris, I kind of feel like I stepped on your toes here, so I hope you don't hold it against me. But I was curious. I should have actually just asked you to do a proper straw poll, but I just at a whim I just did it just out of curiosity's sake. But I was listening to, I think it was Linus Tech Tips with like their WAN show or LAN show. I don't know what it's called, but they're talking about how there's some changes they're making in sleep because Windows is having issues with something. I don't know, it's like the S1 or S0, S3. I don't know. I can't remember all the different little technical details, but then I was just curious because I could get into the weeds about it.
If I may,
Yeah.
I think the issue is that the way the sleep works on Windows is that it can be like sort of awake, like a little bit awake, so it has the network connected also.
Hmm.
So let's say you put the computer to sleep, but the network is still awake. It still can do updates. It can still download all this information, like suck up all this energy, and like maybe warm up, and then you come back later and your laptop is drained. It has no more battery, and it's all hot, and you wonder why that happened. Well, it's because it has the network still up. So they were saying that they were trying to go back to, I think the way it usually is on Linux is just like everything's asleep except everything's to RAM.
Okay.
So they were trying to make that change happen.
Okay. Well, anyway, so I was curious then, like how does sleep work for people, in the Telegram chat on their computers? And I asked also what distro OS you're using and whatnot. So the thing to take away from it is 54% said it works fantastic. 8% said yes, but it's dodgy. 8% said no because they don't trust it. And 30% said no, it's not my thing. So if you remove the 30%, that actually looks really good then as far as how sleep is working on Linux. And I thought that was just a kind of a good thing to hear, that hey, things that 20 years ago when I first started using Linux didn't work so great, but now I mean it's as good as Windows, or maybe you can make the argument better because of the whole network thing. And
Well, you weren't kidding. Sleep used to be just
roll the dice.
So painful. Yeah, and even if you got it to work, it wasn't consistent. Like it would work for a week and then for no reason just stop working. Yeah. I mean, I've always been paranoid anyway. I always save everything, and like so if it crashed, like okay, big deal. It was just more of an annoyance than anything. But sleep now. And so for me it's a little weird because this laptop, for whatever reason, can't use the default sleep method, or I'm not exactly sure what you'd call it. So I have to switch from that to to deep is the version I have to use, or the option I have to use, and it's something I have to add to the kernel, to the boot parameter, I guess. And so
thank you,
so
Eric, because I think you just solved my problem with this laptop, because it has something to do with the NVIDIA code. Because like this laptop, it's a 10-year-old laptop. I've been trying to get the sleep function to work, and it always never wakes up, and it displays this NVIDIA error all the time. And I think that's probably my problem.
Yeah, default is S2 idle, and so you can I'll put it in the chat, but there's a little command you can run, just cat, and it'll tell you what kind you're using, and then you can pretty easily switch just temporarily, and then try sleeping and coming back, and then if it does work, then you append it to your grub boot. So. Yeah, and if I forget, because when everything I install comes with S2 idle as the default. So like when I installed Manjaro last month, it was like, first time I put it to sleep, it didn't work. So I have to always remember to do it.
Yeah, this laptop with mine has been an adventure.
So has anyone here had any issues where they put their machine to sleep and they park it for a long while, or maybe on a low battery, and then it actually goes into hibernate, or does it just die? Like, what's been your experience, Ben?
Oh, I can't tell you the amount of sleep issues that I've had with my machines. I tell you, it has been a dang nightmare trying to get sleep working properly on all of my machines. It's not even darn funny.
Huh. Well, I think it's funny.
So, yeah, I'm not going to go too heavy into that, but I tell you, no matter if I put it to sleep on my Lenovo here that I built Storm OS on, or the one over there building Gentoo right now on my bed, I tell you, no matter what, between the two Lenovo's, I cannot get sleep to work properly on those things to save my darn life.
Hmm.
So I don't know what the heck I'm doing wrong.
Have you looked it up? Like looked on Reddit or something, or just did a regular
I have yet to do that, but
Google machine it?
I'll probably look up that after the show
Yeah.
and just see what I can figure out, because I don't know if like what the heck could be wrong, but for some reason I just can't figure out the proper sleep settings for this G510 or the Legion behind me. So,
Eris, what is it that
Hmm.
what you got?
I think that's the way my old computer used to work on Windows. It would fall asleep. I would put it to sleep, and then if it was there a long time, it would go to hibernate. But
Okay.
I could never do that on Linux. I think I can never get that going like that.
Okay, Mark.
I've had that problem for years also. And for the longest time, one of the grub settings that I would go and add is the API-C equals no or something like that. You'd have to look it up, but that it's the advanced power management stuff. If you turn that off, then when it does, it basically it won't go to sleep. I believe. I've had problems with it for so many years that I finally gave up. So I don't even mess with those things anymore. I try to just not have it go to sleep. If anything, I'll just have the screen blank, but don't have the machine go to sleep. And then the suspend has never worked reliable either. And sleep and suspend are different.
So the
I pretty much given up after all these years.
Yeah, I use it all the time, and actually I even use it on my desktop here too. Like when I put it to sleep, like if I'm going to be gone for an extended period of time, and I haven't had any issues that I know about. But hibernate for me has been kind of touch and go. But I have had my HP EliteBook, like I put it to sleep and then put it in my bag, and it was low on battery, and it actually put itself into hibernate without me telling it to. And I was wondering how that could possibly be, because I thought with Linux it doesn't leave that open, essentially.
It depends on what distribution you're using.
Well,
And
we all know what distribution I'm using.
like with Ubuntu, that's on auto hibernate is on by default, and so same with Pop OS. So it all depends on what distribution you're using,
Yeah.
and whether you turn it on as well.
You got to be very careful if you routinely put your computer in a bag. Don't use the hibernate sleep stuff at all, because if the machine wakes up, something like a ZBook, that's going to heat up that bag a lot.
I have actually had it happen once on me after Linux Saloon. I put this thing to sleep and shoved it in my bag, and in the morning, I open up the computer and it's like at 10% battery because it was on all night long doing nothing. Fortunately, it didn't get hot, so it. I guess I was lucky there. I didn't melt the that thermal shmoo.
That's what led to me figuring out the issue on this XPS, because I got it. Well, I'd gone through, when I bought this laptop, I went through like 3 or 4 different ones trying to find the one that I wanted to use. And so I finally got to this one, and I was really happy with everything. And I did the same thing as Nate. I just closed it up and shoved it in a bag, and then was carrying her with me somewhere. And I could actually, I heard fans, and I'm like, what am I hearing? And I reached in my bag, and yeah, it was like toasty hot in there, and it had come on because the S2 idle, option doesn't work. And so that's when I was like, oh, I got to send this laptop back now because it's not going to work for me. And I researched, and it took me a long time to find. It was on some like obscure forum somewhere. I found it. So yeah, and as far as I know, most Dells, it's like a BIOS thing or something, but most Dells have this issue. So
Yeah, this is a Dell, and I just took a look at it. Your problem was my problem, so I gotta go and fix that in the kernel. But yeah,
And I've primarily also dealt with Dells over the years, so could be something related to that.
I had
I'm
with HP, I had a ZBook when I used to work for a certain corporation, and if I didn't turn off the mouse first, the wireless mouse, the mouse would actually trigger the computer to turn on. So I had more than once I killed the battery of my corporate machine turning on because I did things in the wrong order. So that was irritating.
um, well, a lot of Dell, a lot of HPs have that wake up using USB option in the BIOS. All you have to do is turn that off.
I didn't have access to the BIOS.
Oh well, yeah, I was gonna say
it was a corporate
it
machine.
was some sort of organization or something that locks you out. But yeah, but usually that's what happens is that wake up on USB, because I always turn that off because my USB mouses are always on, so I always have to turn that off.
I'm a bit confused with the terminology of all this because I've got on my computer, does it depend on the desktop what they call it, or the different ones? Because I don't even have sleep on mine. I've got suspend.
Well, in Australia, don't your fans spin backwards anyways?
They do, yeah. It said there were toilets too, yeah.
There's a lot of things going backwards over here, although we're in the future.
Right.
But
that's why it spins
suspend and
backwards.
hibernate I've got. Well, there's no sleep, but I can tell you one thing. I've turned off automatic suspend because if I'm downloading something from the internet and suspend kicks in, then my download stops. Is that normal?
Yes.
It
Yeah.
depends on the sleep you're doing. Like I said, like Linus was complaining because like Nate said, the computer turns on, it starts downloading all these updates, starts doing all these network like Wi-Fi things in the background. You don't even know. The computer starts warming up. But there's also the other type of sleep where everything's like asleep except the RAM has power to it, just keeping it going. So there's different types of sleep.
Okay. Fair enough. If Nate, if you were sleeping in a hammock, would you be in a suspended sleep?
Yes. And that's a beautiful transition right there, because that's the cherry right on top of the sundae. So thank you for that, Colin. All right, so we're rapidly running out of time here, but I want to talk about, we have a new year of Linux coming up. It's a new year, so of Linux, because this is Linux Saloon and that's what we talk about. And there's a lot of really neat things that are coming out, and I was thinking specifically actually about Sravan, because he's really into the single board computers, and something caught my eye. The Vision 5.2 RISC-V quad-core low-cost single-board computer. Now, I got that from Explaining Computers. Great channel to watch. The delivery is so dry, I laugh. I don't know what my problem is, but I really enjoy it.
I love that guy.
Yeah.
Honestly, he can explain how to make a piece of toast, and it would be interesting to me. Seriously.
And educationally, probably go into the science of what's actually happening with the toast and stuff like that. But anyway, so there's a lot of.
I learned from him.
Yeah.
Actually, a couple of videos which are good. If you actually want to understand the difference between x86 and ARM, watch his videos on RISC and CISC. He explains it so well. Like if you actually want, okay, why is ARM less power consuming? What's the difference? Why do you have to write different software? Just watch his videos. It's so good. Explaining computers.
Yeah, it's great. So that was one thing that interested me, seeing the RISC-V. Now it's in early stages. The software's not mature on it. There's a engineering release of Debian that runs on it. But I just thought that was interesting that we're seeing, I don't know if we're coming out of the chip shortages. I don't know what the future holds. I mean, everything is turbulent. So we're in kind of a turbulent time here. But you gotta stay positive, gotta stay focused, gotta, not let it drag you down. But some other things, because like the Raspberry Pi has been hard to get. I mean, you have to you get scalper prices on Raspberry Pis right now, which is very unfortunate. But there's another very interesting single board computer ecosystem, I guess you want to call it, Orange Pi. Sravan, have you seen any of these? Have you played with any of these?
I have not played, but we got some requests
Okay.
to support them. But again, I think I have enough ARM architect hardware. I don't want to buy more. I don't want to support more.
Well, they're small, so you can probably get like a whole briefcase full of those things and be all right.
Yeah, but it's like if someone wants to contribute, they're welcome. I think for me right now, I'm supporting 3 devices. That's enough for me. In the future I'll support the ROG 5e whenever the support gets mainlined.
Yeah, that makes sense. You don't want to spread yourself too thin.
Yeah, because we just have 2 developers in our team for ARM, and we don't want to overburden ourselves, and we want to support only the most popular hardware, because again, that's where most people use. That's where we see the most use. Like supporting niche hardware, again, it takes up more effort, and we don't want to again spread ourselves. The thing about installers is that you want them to be stable, you want them to work well. So having too many, so I think I explained before on earlier Linux Saloon, the thing for ARM is that each device you support, if you want to support it well, have a good enough installer, you have to release a different image. It's not like x86 64 where you have this an ISO, it works on almost everything without minimal. You use like Fedora image writer or whatever, like Etcher, you burn ISO, you insert, it works. ARM isn't like that. So each device you want to support, it's a different image.
Right.
And you have to test it. It's like, I don't want to take up that much. Again, I am developing support for devices, so it's up to me to decide whether I want to support or not. Currently, I don't want. But they are becoming more popular. For sure. Orange Pi is becoming more popular. There's many community members who start topics on them. So if I'll link our ARM forum. It's the same forum, just ARM category. You'll see at least 3 or 4 Orange Pi topics. I'll paste the link here.
Which Orange Pi were you referring to, Nate?
So the one that interests me the most is the 800.
Orange Pi is becoming more popular. It's the RK3588S or the mini platform. It's the same chip as ROG 5e, but the S is mini. I don't know how much they removed, but it's the same support. So again, that's becoming very popular. Like I can probably link the news for that. Yeah, and yeah, Orange Pi is becoming popular because the Raspberry Pi hardware isn't available. So Orange Pi is like, okay, you can, if you want, you can get it.
Right.
I was looking at the website. I stopped at Orange Pi 800. That's why I asked you, because I thought a computer inside a keyboard is right up Nate's alley.
It is. It speaks to me. It speaks. It's kind whispering words in my ear whenever I see it. You know, I haven't really welcomed a few other people. Ben, thanks for being here. I don't know how to pronounce your name. I know you're from Nigeria, but I can Chikuwu. Anyway, welcome. Mark, good to see you here. It feels like I haven't seen you all year. Adam, always good to see your avatar of yourself, which is good, you know. And Sab GFX, nice to have you join the chat or the Zoom.
We're gonna call him.
By the way, Nate, there's a couple of things I wanted to touch on other than just Storm OS that I wanted to bring up before we end.
Sure. Yeah, I'll give you the community Freeport segment.
Sure.
On that.
Okay. And I had a quick follow up on this Orange Pi and Raspberry Pi.
Yes.
I recently watched a interview with the Raspberry Pi team, and they were talking about Raspberry Pi 5 is going to be pushed out this year. Not sure if you knew about that.
I did not.
Yeah, but there's a good interview on that. They are going to ramp up production of the Raspberry 4, Raspberry Pi 4B, their current revs that's basically very, very popular. They are ramping that up this and next quarter, and they plan on delivering those units this year. It was interesting. They went into a lot of the discussion around, you know, they've been trying to release so many units to the consumer market, but also their enterprise customers that they're you know, supply embedded equipment to. They've been trying to, you know, juggle the right mix over these over the past year and through the pandemic to make sure that they're you know, delivering enough units to each one. And of course, he talked a little bit about scalpers, and you know, and while it's sort of a good thing, they can really only scalp the consumer allotment, right? And while the others have still been able to get Raspberry Pis for various, you know, appliances and things like that. So
it's the Compute Module 4 that I really would like to have. That's actually like to get my grubby little fingers on.
There's and he did talk about some things that are not under constraint. I think there's a Raspberry Pi 3 compute something or another. He was saying that those things are actually not under constraint. So don't quote me on that one, but look for the interview. There was a recent interview around, basically look for Raspberry Pi on hold for this year, and you'll find the interview.
Very cool.
Yeah.
It was fun.
It was worth the watch. Get to hear a little bit about how they're coming from the Raspberry Pi's perspective, right?
Yeah. Another single board computer I really like is the BeagleBone Black specifically. It has I feel it's a little more industrial, perhaps, than the Raspberry Pi. It doesn't have like built-in sound and such, but it's great for like I/O and real-time type activities. So,
like if you're looking for a Raspberry Pi alternative, I would personally suggest Odroid over Orange Pi.
Okay.
Odroid software support is good because they have a developer who forked the kernel and updates the kernel, and they have their own U-boot. So most of the devices boot and have a good kernel. That's what you need for ARM. If you're able to boot it well, if you have a kernel, that means that you can run any OS on it. So ARMBN has good support. Other Manjaro will have good support. If any ARM device has good U-boot and good kernel, major ARM distros will always have good support. Otherwise, it's very hard to build like even boot these things. And also, Nate, you were talking about RISC-V, right? RISC-V. So there's an Arch developer who has started a RISC-V porting process. So 97% of core packages in Arch repositories have been ported, 92% in extra, and 90% in community have already been ported to RISC-V.
Wow, that's amazing.
So this is just porting. It's not like booting and other stuff. I don't think there's an ISO. I pasted the link on the chat. This is just porting the packages. Again, so probably our compile flags and getting the compiler and toolchain working for RISC-V. I'm sure this is like really hard to do. I have no idea how he's doing it, but yeah. So porting has already started, but this is not an Arch project. This is just an Arch developer working on his own.
Gotcha.
So yeah, if Arch is able to do it, I think other distros are also able to build packages. But again, these are mostly open source packages. So
another interesting couple of boards that I thought were something to check out, the Libre computer. I'm not sure if you've seen that one. It's a really inexpensive one, although they're kind of smaller, like 2 gigabyte. The Le Potato, which makes me think of, I can't remember who in the Linux community that would refer to as old slow. Oh, you know, Dan. He's referred to his computer as a potato before. That's right. And So it's actually called Le Potato, which makes me laugh. And then another one that I think is really interesting is the Tinkerboard from Asus. To see someone like Asus get involved on the ARM single board computer line or business or area genre, I think is pretty cool, and it does say something about where they see the industry going as well. So I think the hardware this year, I'm excited about certain things. Now I'm curious. So for people who are here, I'm going to start with you, Mark. Is there anything on the wish list that Mark would like to get sometime in 2023?
I would like to get some open camera systems. You know, these it seems like every one of these camera systems that I use for security and such, everyone has their proprietary interfaces, and you know, you have to go through some you have to go through subscriptions, and some you have to go through others. There is an open source project for cameras, and iOS. So I think it's called iOS.
Okay.
EYEOS. I really like some hardware that you know works well, and all of those things are working together. So that's just one I threw out, you know, that comes to the top of mind.
Yeah, I can see that. I'm in the same boat with you on that one. Jinda, is there any bits of hardware out there that you're particularly interested in?
I really wanted to get a new Raspberry Pi 5, but it doesn't look like it's coming out anytime soon.
Oh, well, sorry, man.
I gotta hold back the tears.
Gonna check out the Tinkerboard.
Yeah, maybe I should check out that.
Make Sravan happy and get an Odroid, because he keeps talking about him. He's got an almost healthy obsession with the Odroid, I think.
The orange pies look awful nice, though.
Yes, they do. Something to tinker with. That's not called the Tinkerboard. How about you, Colin? Is there anything out there that really interests you as far as like hardware you'd like to get your Australian down under fingers on?
Yeah, well, I've been going through a process recently. As you know, I almost messed my little knuck up by accidentally spilling a drink into it. But it's actually working, suggested by someone in Telegram chat. Just leave it sit for a week. So during that week, I had a chance to, you know, try vanilla OS and all that. I just needed this laptop to get me up and running. But then it had me searching for what do I want to do, because now Intel have another Skull Canyon thing, which is like a mini computer, and it fits a full-size graphics card, which is quite interesting. And then it got me thinking, what is the best hardware for Linux? Because normally most things I have is NVIDIA. Not that I knew that, you know, they were a problem when I bought the computer for Linux, because I didn't originally buy it for Linux. I just bought it. But what hardware is best? Is the Radeon and the AMD stuff, you know, the CPU and graphics card, are they the best? Are they well supported? The older cards or the newer ones? Yeah.
As far as ease of use and getting it running, the AMD graphics cards are better with Linux because their drivers are open source and they're included in all the repositories. The NVIDIA cards can be a little bit more harder to get running, and they don't support like Wayland and stuff like that. So if you want to use Wayland, you got to use AMD. As far as processors go, it really doesn't matter. It depends on what you're doing. If you want to use an APU, if you want to use integrated, definitely the APUs are better than Intel. But if you're just going to use dedicated graphics, it really doesn't matter. The Intels are more powerful as far as CPUs go.
So my other question is, Nate, is are we still patching Intel chips, or are the newer chips not patched anymore? Because we had that, what do you call it? That thing that happened a while ago.
Spectre and Meltdown.
The Spectre meltdown. Are we still patching that for Intel?
I think so.
Yeah.
Yes, they are.
Yes, we are. Yeah.
Weren't there like new patches like half a year ago? I think there were like newer patches. This was like half a year ago still.
Yeah, they
I-
still keep finding things. Yeah.
I run zero
Yeah.
mitigations on my laptop. I only run mitigations on desktops.
Yeah, you can
Right,
choose
so-
not to patch. I mean, you don't have to patch because some of them are kind of unlikely because they require access to the machine or like, so some distros actually don't have any of those. I forget which one it is specifically. I know there's one that's just like
Clear Linux.
we don't do it because the what is it?
Clear Linux.
Clear? Okay.
They
Oh,
specifically
Clear
don't,
Linux.
don't have the
Yeah, Clear
mitigations.
Linux doesn't.
Right. But they're built in, the patches are built into the kernel, aren't they? It's
Yes.
not a matter of, yes, that's
They're
right.
built into the microcode.
Yeah. So I have to think maybe AMD is probably a better solution. I don't know whether it runs better on Linux or faster or not, whether USB peripherals are quicker or not. I don't know. I don't have the...
I can't
It's-
speak for the right now AMD, but if you plan on using Thunderbolt, from last I checked, Thunderbolt doesn't work on AMD, but I think that's supposed to change.
That's
So
even,
Right.
it's an Intel technology.
My HP laptop, that's an AMD base, and Thunderbolt works just fine.
Well, USB
So-
3 probably works, but I don't know if Thunderbolt itself, the protocol, is active.
Yeah, no, it worked.
Okay.
It worked just fine.
Maybe. I don't know. I'm just saying last I checked. So I could be wrong on that.
Okay, I'm thinking about buying because this little nut thing now that they've got is quite good. It's only about, so big. It's bigger than this one, but it's more powerful. It's got the latest i9 or i7, but it'd be nice to maybe use Intel with AMD Radeon. I think maybe a good match. I think a lot of people do it that way. All right, I'm just going through those things at the moment, just figuring out what's the best way to go.
But yeah, another thing to keep in mind is a lot of times the AMD, not the AMD GPUs, a little bit behind as far as speed goes. NVIDIA. So if you're looking for raw power, still NVIDIA is the better option. But
I think you
Yeah.
have to ask yourself the question, is it good for Colin? So I don't think there is a best solution that's universal. I think you have to figure out what is the best solution for Colin, because it's good to kind of figure out what it is that matters to you and then kind of tailor your hardware accordingly to that.
exactly.
I don't really need a graphics card, to be honest. It might speed up maybe Kdenlive Live, I don't know. But I've been using just CPU and integrated, not integrated. Is it integrated graphics on CPU? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's all I've been using. But if I was to buy another one, I probably don't need a graphics card. I'm just trying to find out, whether they do work or not and what's best. Because sometimes when it comes to tech, you can't try tech out. Once you buy tech, you've got it and you're stuck with it. And that's a problem with tech. So you've really got to do your homework to make sure it is what Colin wants, right?
Yeah.
That's
Well, if you're looking for better video editing, yes, a graphics card makes a real big difference.
But some of these new Intel chips are quite speedy. They're probably double what mine's doing now, and mine seems to work pretty good with Kdenlive Live. So maybe
Wait a
go that
minute.
way. I'm not sure.
Sorry, Colin. So which video editor takes advantage of the GPU in like a way that is demonstrable? I know that video editors can use like transcoding for videos using a hardware acceleration and stuff like that, but in terms of like just actually using the GPU for like
I think
editing
Blender.
the video.
I remember Blender had an option for choosing a graphics card, which I don't know if it worked because I never had a graphics card, but I remember Blender had an option because I was using Blender for quite a while.
Yeah, okay. As far as, for transcoding, Shotcut takes advantage of a graphics card. DaVinci Resolve does. Kdenlive does. But as far as like OpenShot and stuff, that stuff is broken.
No, I get, but that's what I'm saying. Outside of transcoding, like what is it in particular in a video editor that would take advantage. I mean, I guess it could
Mhm.
with the scrubbing and stuff like that, but that's the
Yeah.
point.
Yeah, okay. As far as decoding and playback, Shortcut takes advantage of that. So does that takes advantage of hardware decoders. So does DaVinci Resolve.
My understanding was that
broken.
my understanding was that if you're trying to optimize video editing, that CPU is still pretty much like the major.
Yes,
I mean, I think,
is.
I think they have started to take advantage of GPUs,
Mhm.
but not nearly
Yeah.
as they rely very heavily on the CPU. So,
Yeah.
anyway.
Well, I know DaVinci Resolve relies very heavily on the GPU and uses a lot of GPU VRAM.
It
I
does,
know
but
they
even
Yeah. What?
yeah, but honestly, even on mine, like I have a desktop that's got and it's got a really powerful GPU. And it still needs those proxy clips. Like,
Yeah.
Because it's not the real-time component is not great. At least they don't take full advantage of it. Like, so anyway, I'm just saying, like, I think if anyone were to listen to that and think that, oh, I've got a system with not a great CPU, but if I put a good GPU in it, then somehow that's going to make a big difference. I don't think it
kind of
would.
worded that weird. You're right, but let's just say this computer right here, with Shortcut. If I disable the NVIDIA card on it, the performance of Shortcut goes down about 50%.
Like just the UI itself.
Just the UI, the playback, everything.
Okay.
But when I turn on the NVIDIA GPU, it is miles different. It is a very noticeable difference. So Shortcut is starting to utilize the GPU a lot, as far as the interface and everything like that. So, because like I noticed an immediate difference between this computer and my HP as far as video editing with the NVIDIA card, and this NVIDIA card is 10 years old.
Right. Okay.
So.
Yeah, good to know. I want to kind of move on real quick to some other things here. We're running rapidly out of time, and I do want to get to StormOS here before too long. But something to think about for this year, this new year of Linux, some projects that you might consider trying. If you have not yet, if you're not already using it, I'm sure Mark is using most of these because he seems like he uses all the server cool things. If you haven't tried Home Assistant yet, and you want to do some automations, even some simple stuff, not necessarily things that change any of the. I changed out actual switches in my house, but you don't have to do that. It's actually it's a great project you might consider trying. Has anyone here run Home Assistant at all besides me? No, Mark. I thought Mark ran Home Assistant.
No, I haven't, but I need to use something like that.
So there's a lot of the community is really growing around Home Assistant. A lot of like third-party plugins and whatnot that work with there. So it's amazing you can do with it. If you have if you have to do 3D printing, you have Octopi on your 3D printer. You can actually have that information and as just like a page in Home Assistant. Obviously controlling lights and automations, and there's plugins for the Googles and the Amazons as well if you care for that sort of thing. But yeah, it's a really cool project that I think people should check out. Try something, a little bit maybe outside of your normal zone of comfort. Something else you might consider trying is, there's the decentralization of social media. Whatever your opinion is of any of the centralized versions, that's fine. But maybe Mastodon is a really cool, like if you want to run that on your own. Although the popular Mastodon, I guess, is already dropping, but I don't care. I've been using it now for a long time. But things like maybe try, if you don't stick with it, maybe try setting up a Mastodon instance, and instead of using somebody else's, use your own. It might be a fun thing to try. Something I also thought was really cool that people should just think about giving a try as well is something called Imish or Imish. It's a high-performance self-hosted photo and video backup solution. So it kind of gives you kind of a Google Photos sort of experience, but it's on your own hardware. So I thought those are very interesting things to try. And then another one, my last one, I want to talk about these more in depth, but I really want to kick these out here, is your own media server. So something like Jellyfin. So I think I want to say it's Linux Unplugged that's doing like Jellyfin January or something like that. And I thought I would hop on board with that as well, just to give it a try, because I think it's a neat project. I've kind of looked at it a few times, but that's something else I think that might be worth giving a try sometime here in 2023. But anyway, so I just want to talk about those a little bit, just kind of kick them out there. Some really neat projects that are have a lot of momentum behind them that might be worth taking a glance at. We might actually dig into those maybe sometime over the course of the year, as far as some application appetizers, and kind of dig into that as well. But I'll probably ask Eric how to best, or Eris, how to help implement those as far as testing them out. All right, just for some real quick housekeeping, if you have any suggestions for a distribution to try out or applications, please email them to suggestions@linuxsaloon.com. Be very helpful. Then I can put these in the list to save on the time of deciding on that week. Another thing too is I have set up and please don't hang me by the yard arm, but there is I've set up a Google Calendar. So if you want to actually see when and what we're talking about on topics, I think I have the next 6 weeks out. I'll have a link. If you go to cubiclenate.com/Linux Saloon, there's a calendar right there. You can look at it. You can actually see what's coming up, like in an agenda view. So that will tell you that next week we're going to have a news flight night. So if you want to check that out, that may be helpful. I may eventually move this to another platform, but you can actually add the calendar to your Google Calendar. And so that might be helpful for people who are very calendar driven. Like I right now, I got to find a good solution. I want to get off Google Calendar. I really do. But everything else I've tried has not worked well enough. And so I'm kind of stuck on it right now. So eventually I may move away. But for now, I need a solution that I don't have to maintain. And this one works quite well. So check it out for the calendar there. And you can link to that. You can add it to your, attach the calendar or whatever it is you want to do. So you can have it on your phone and be reminded right there. For the community report. Yes, you can print it and put it on your refrigerator. Say, look, Mom, look what I did.
I really like having the calendar. I appreciate you doing that, Nate. It helps me to, because I'm constantly like, what is this week?
Yeah, so I thought I'd try and be a little bit better organized. I spent quite a bit of time in the last week doing Linux Saloon things. You may notice that there's a bit of a different look to Linux Saloon stream. Hopefully people actually like it and aren't upset. You can still wear cowboy hats, and I like to still imagine there's swinging doors on the way in, but it's a little more like a speakeasy is kind of the look I'm going for. So the music is the same because I think it still fits. So I just thought I'd try and step it up a little bit too. So Steve says, but Nate, a calendar is so dated. I don't know if that's a dad joke or if he's trying to take a dig on me. I'm not sure. I'll take it as both. Nice dig.
Email and calendaring will never die. Sorry.
No, it won't.
I think it's because it's calendar and dated. It's so dated. Get it? Calendar. Yeah.
God, I didn't even get it.
It could be worse, Nate. It could be jaded.
Like a horse?
That was like Colin's earlier. What was Colin's joke we didn't even respond to because we didn't get it was a joke?
I got that. I got that joke too, by the way.
Did you? Oh.
Yeah.
I'm slipping.
Yeah.
All right, so Ben, I got just a couple of minutes here. Storm OS.
Okay.
But
so what's going on with that?
So the Reader's Digest version, if you can.
Okay, I'll try and make it as quick as I can. So we're keeping the XFC version going forward. That's not going nowhere. But February and onward, guys, we are no longer going to be having a the KDE version is still going to be there. However, it's not going to be directly available anymore, and that's partly because I'm in college. I'm going towards A+, a myriad of things right now that I just cannot maintain two ISOs of the same thing at the same time. So, as disappointing this news might seem, the problem is that, again, for a myriad of reasons that I just don't want to go into to keep this short, we are not going to have more than one ISO. That's it. So yeah, if you do still want to if you still want to use the KDE version, we are going to put it on GitHub, or you can donate to me and download it that way. Have me build it for people. So yeah, that's essentially what we're going to do now, is to help boost the donations and to get some weight off of me and my friends who help me with this. We are going to only have one ISO XFC. That's it, long story short.
Well, it's probably best to not overextend yourself.
Yeah, you're right, Nate. And that's kind of why, you know, the KDE version is going to be an on-demand thing. That's how it's going to go from now on. So.
Well, I wish you the best of luck with that. You know, I think staying focused on XFCE, if that's what you prefer anyway, there's really
Yeah,
no point
I mean,
in
that's what
doing.
I daily drive, no matter if I'm running StormOS or something else, you know,
Yeah.
I'm going to be on XFCE going here on out. So, yeah.
It makes total sense. I get it. And I
Yes.
wish you the best of long-term success on keeping StormOS going, because I think that
Yeah,
that's something you
and
enjoy.
it's not going anywhere. It's just, you know, we're only going to have one code base, and that's it.
Yeah, that makes total
So
sense.
anyway, I also made a few distro-specific changes. Calamari is no longer loads by default. We have a welcome app now that it loads through with options for normal and debugging. So if people need to debug the installer and tell me something's wrong, they can do that. And yeah, so XFCE is now 4.18, just package updates really. So yeah, if people want to download and give it a try, feel free. Those are the ISOs for this month are still being tested. But yeah, like I said, the January ISO is the last one that's going to have KDE by default. So yeah.
Well, good deal. Well, I'm
Yes.
glad you're pushing forward. You know, good luck on your schooling and getting your certifications and everything else. And hopefully that
Yes,
means
and I will be here next week for the news flight. Oh, and one other, I do have a sort of tech question that I want to throw out before we conclude.
Sure.
My Lenovo gaming laptop is having a bit of a Linux quirk on it. No matter what distro I run, whether it be StormOS, Gen 2, anything like that, even something easy based like Ubuntu or whatever, for some reason I have to manually, every once in a while, this isn't like long term, but this has been going on since I got it in 2021. It has an Intel AX200 series Wi-Fi card. And Eric Adams, or no, it was Adam Grubbs that told me about this. Sorry, Eric, I got that wrong. But I don't know if you guys are aware of this, but the AX200 Wi-Fi series has been buggy as heck for me. And I don't know if this is something that's Linux wide, but it's constantly having to be restarted, the Wi-Fi applet. And I can't figure out a way to fix this. Adam told me that it's a firmware problem, but I tried installing the latest Linux firmware package, didn't help. I don't know what the F is wrong, but I can't figure out if it's a card problem or a Linux problem or what is going on. So I figured I'd address this in here and see if we can pull
It's
some
a
strings
Linux
and
problem.
figure
I
out
have a
what the hell's going
question.
on.
It's
Is it
a Linux problem. I have the card in my laptop, and I have the same similar problems you have, but I don't have the
So what did you end
motherboards.
up doing with it, Adam?
Just living with it.
Is there any like good USB solution that you can think of, or is it just not worth messing with that either?
I don't know. Didn't bother. I just live
Well,
with it.
here's the thing. I do have this DWA125 D-Link card that I have sitting here in my shirt pocket, but the problem with that is, yes, it's Linux native. However, it's an N card and it's really darn old. And I was thinking of maybe getting an AC or an AX USB adapter.
Are we just gonna brush over the fact that you have a Wi-Fi card in your pocket?
It's whatever, but yeah, I just figured I'd bring this up because, you know,
doesn't everybody?
it's very annoying.
Adam,
I just
I mean,
wanted to
I
bring this
guess,
up.
man, I guess not. I have a shirt pocket, no Wi-Fi card. I'll remedy that soon.
Oh man.
Yeah, well, anyway, yeah,
got
I was
Bluetooth here and
wondering if
a
anyone has a
Wi-Fi here.
solution on this.
Have you tried OpenSUSE? That'd be my question.
Well, I have considered
That's your
that
answer to
maybe,
everything.
but you know, like Adam said, it is a Linux wide problems. So I don't know if SUSE would help, but it is a potential candidate if Gen 2 completely screws up on me with this again, which it likely will. But
So
you
Ben,
know, go ahead.
have you just considered just replacing the code? Because generally those
Well,
modules.
that is a possibility, Peng, because I mean, I have considered that, but you know, I don't know where Lenovo in the laptop keeps the card, because I mean, I'll show you. There has been a lot of the bottom of this thing is starting to fall apart, and my dad has already had to tape this thing several times already, and I'm just considering a
works
USB
great.
solution. Yeah, I'm considering a USB solution at this point because that might be a safer bet in my case. So yeah. I mean, replacing the card would be an interesting endeavor. However, taking that thing apart is more H than it's worth, in my opinion.
So, yeah. Well, I mean, as far as the technical stuff goes, I mean, we're probably not gonna be able to solve that here, but you might
fine.
consider.
Mhm.
I think replacing an internal card might be a path to go.
Yeah, well, I'm gonna the route to go, yeah. But I'll just look up, different USB solutions, and if none of those work, then I'll probably go an internal route and just change it out just for the heck of it.
Sounds good.
So
All
yeah,
right.
thanks, and moving on.
All right. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate your input, and good luck with Storm OS
Everything.
and balancing that with school and your certifications.
Thank you. And it was fun talking to you guys, but I gotta bounce.
Okay. Well, don't bounce too hard.
All right.
All right. So with that, it's closing time, and unfortunately, Steve's very own will not be having a stream tomorrow morning, so we're gonna miss out on that. He didn't say why.
That's a
and I'm
bit,
sure it's,
bit slack, isn't it? Bit slack.
it is a bit slack. Yeah. I mean, he didn't give a good excuse either. And so
No,
I'm
he's
not
probably
sure-
working.
Well, I
He
mean,
works hard. That man.
He does. He's like the hardest working man in all of the Midwest. So, Mark, the Atlanta Linux Enthusiast Group, are you meeting tomorrow?
Yes, we meet every Sunday online. You can find out more information at ale.org. Our Sunday meetings are U.S. Eastern Time at 3 p.m. to 6. We're available for 3 hours, and there is no set agenda. We actually help people with their problems. And if Ben would have stuck around for a few minutes, I would have told him that.
I was just gonna say he could have joined a. Yeah.
And actually last Sunday we helped someone with their newer laptop that the chipset wasn't supported. And the chipsets are typically supported in kernels. And we do find that sometimes you can go to a newer kernel, but that does get you out of the long-term support type of situation. But you can go to newer kernels and solve those issues. And and Ben, if you hear this later, you're welcome to join us, and we'll try to look at that chipset with you and help you through the issues. Sometimes having a few other people be able to do Google foo on it is helpful. So yeah, that is the Atlanta Linux Enthusiasts. We talk about Linux and open source projects, and we try to stay on topic. Again, every Sunday, US 3 p.m. Eastern. Thank you, Nate.
Well, thank you for being here, and I appreciate you plugging that. It's been helpful every time I've been there. If nothing else, the moral support I get from fellow Linux nerds is worth something in and of itself. Destination Linux is streaming live tomorrow afternoon at 1 p.m. Eastern, so check that out. Ryan, Matt, and Jill. Michael. Ryan, Michael, and Jill are quite entertaining. And
forgotten.
Yeah, well, I make mistakes.
I heard gas station Linux. When he first said it, I'm like, what's gas station Linux? But I'm like,
so it's like when you go,
no.
When you pump gas, the little thing that tells you, gives you all this.
Well, that screen,
advertising. Yeah,
that screen should be like a terminal, right?
It should be, yeah. So yeah. So Destination Linux is streaming live tomorrow 1 p.m. So check that out if you like live shows. The next Linux user space will drop on Monday, and they are reviewing Gecko Linux, which is OpenSUSE based on OpenSUSE, which is absolutely fantastic. And I'm excited to hear that. Linux Out Loud is a podcast I'm a part of. My co-hosts, Matt and Wendy, we chatted about just the various projects that we're up to our eyeballs with. If you want more things on me, go to cubiclenate.com. I do things. I think since the last Linux Saloon, I did 10 blatherings, as I call them, articles. Things like Fortnite on the Steam Deck, building a new retro-styled computer. I built and modified my Ender 3 LAC table enclosure. Also, I'm back to X11 from using Wayland, and I did a little write-up on that. And I did 5 videos also. I was trying to crank some things out that I'd been working on at different stages, and I just finally had the time to kind of just, do them. So if you want to check that out,
Hey, Nate, and I know you don't necessarily like promoting yourself, but I've really enjoyed those videos and your walkthrough of getting your daughter's unit built and the pink unit built.
Yep.
I really enjoyed all of that. So thank you so much. Those are great videos.
Well,
I appreciate it.
It's nice to hear, because sometimes you wonder if it's worth taking the time and effort to do it. And but yeah,
Definitely is.
I enjoy them. The laptop, the RAM upgrade in the laptop I did was kind of a blathering, basically. I did the upgrade. It was actually really nice to work on something that doesn't kick you in the teeth, and there's something to be said for hardware you can actually work on. So I talked about that. But anyway,
yeah.
Also, I just did a very unrelated to Linux. I investigated what killed or what went dead on a drywall cutout tool, and I thought it was kind of dull, so I had to do some things to make it more exciting. But anyway, check that out. I do things. So Linux Saloon is part of the Tux Digital Network. Check out more great shows at tuxdigital.com. I want to thank you all for being a part of the conversation in both the Zoom meeting and the YouTube stream, as well as everyone for watching this show after the fact. I want to thank everyone involved in making the Linux and open source tools possible for us to not only have this conversation, but also to have fun and enjoy our technology. Linux truly puts personal back into personal computers. Thank you for stopping by. Be sure to tip your developers, and please remember to Linux responsibly. Until next time, see yous.
Bye.
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 All right. That's because I messed up. All right, we'll do this all over again. Welcome to Linux Saloon, a place to discuss.
That's gonna
Really
be
different and
to
better.
resolve
I'm just
and
curious because I've never.
You cut out. Eric, did you cut out for everyone
sorry.
else or just?
Yeah, no, I
Hey,
think
cut
I
off
did.
the
Zoom has been unpleasant all night. Anyway, I thought I'd never leave.
Hey.
Arrivederci.